Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to New Brit Workshop. I thought we'd try something completely different, something new. We're going to build a bird box, and it's a bird box that looks a little bit like a beach hut. Now, I'm not going to be offering any plans for this, so if you want to make one, watch the video and then work it out for yourself. It's a very nice little exercise. I'm going to make something that looks a little bit like shiplap. I'm going to make a proper frame. I'm going to build it as though it was a real shed. Now, in order to make the pretend shiplap, I'm going to create a profile that's something like this dark shape here. So in order to do this, I've put a rebate cutter in the CMS OF, that's the Festool router table here, and I've set that at half the height that my shiplap's going to be. Shiplap's going to be 7mm thick, and that's at 3.5mm. And the first part will be to take the big lump of wood and put one rebate cut on here. I'll then take it over to the CMS TS, where I'll saw that off. And my stock is going to be 7mm thick, and that's set at 7mm. So I'll then have a piece 7mm thick which has got one rebate on. I'll take that piece back to the router table and put the other rebate on, and then repeat the process. Right, I've made up about 16 pieces like this. I've got 8 of them which I put to one side, which I'm going to use for the roof, and I'll show you that later. But these, I'm going to put the little bit of detail, which is that chamfered edge, on one part of the edge of the rebate. Now, in order to set this up, I've got a V cutter here, and I want my V cutter to really effectively take a chamfer just off that edge there, just across there. So the top of my V cutter's got to just touch that part under there when this is held down like so. So I'm lowering this down until that just touches, which is there. So that's my height set. Now, as far as the depth goes, what I've got to do is to now make a judgment so that when this is in place, it's going to create the V in the right place. And I'm looking very carefully down here, and I want that to be absolutely spot on. Got that pretty much as it should be. In the middle of the fake door on the bird box is the hole which the birds will go through. In my case, I'm thinking of fairly small birds, and one of the problems we have, certainly in the UK, I'm sure the world over, is that predators try and get into bird boxes. And what they normally try and do is get through the hole which the little birds are using, and they peck at it, trying to make that hole a bit bigger so they can get in. And in order to stop them doing that, you can put a metal washer around the hole, and that's what I've got here. But in order to make it look nice, I want the metal washer set into that fake front door. So I need to make a rebate, which is, in my case, 48mm in diameter, and it's just over 4mm in depth. Now, in order to do this sort of operation, there are two things I've got. One, you can't get anymore, well, at least not from where I bought this. I bought from Axminster many years ago a circle template, and it has holes going from, I think it's 30mm in diameter up to 85. And you can use that for template work, as I'm about to do. Axminster still sell the UJK threaded guide bush set, which I use all the time. Now, the beauty of the UJK guide bush set is that if you've got the Lee jig adapter for your router, and this is the one for my little OF 1010 router, which is just here, then all of those guide rings will fit in here. And the one I'm going to use has got a diameter of 20mm, and that just fits in like so. And I just attach this knurled nut to the other side, and that's it in place, and that's perfectly smooth there, fits nicely. And now I just reattach this to the router. Now, in order to calculate the sizes you require, it's done as follows. Now, I want my finished recess or rebate to be 48mm in diameter. Now, the way you do the calculation, I'll put it up on the screen now, is that 48 in my case must equal the diameter of the hole in the template. In this case, I'm using 60 millimeters, minus the diameter of the guide. In this case, it's 20, so 60 minus 20, so that brings us to 40, plus the diameter of the cutter, and I've put an 8 millimeter cutter in here. So my calculation brings me back to 48. So that's the 704R lead jig adapter with that 20 millimeter guide bush now fixed back onto my writer. I've clamped my template over the piece of wood so that the center line of where I want to do this hole is lined up with the center line of the guide. I'm now going to place my writer down on there. And in order to do that, it's very simple. I'm going to plunge the writer down until the cutter hits the wood. Then I'm just going to tighten that up for now. And now I'm going to take my ring, and I want this actually to be a fraction deeper than that is thick. But a simple way is to put the item whose depth you know underneath here, drop the plunger there, and then tighten up. Now, in reality, I want to be a fraction deeper. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this. There we go. It's about 1 millimeter deeper. So that's fine. I'm happy with that. Tighten that up. So if I were to now further plunge this down until the two touched each other here, that would achieve the depth that I want. So there's that washer inset. There's a little bit of play there. I'm not worried about that. And I will screw that in. I'll put a couple of screw holes through there, and I will put a hole in the center here for the birds to go in and out through. I want to put some markings down here to make it look as though it's made from solid planks of wood. So I've still got my V cutter here, and I've set that up initially so that it's lined up with the center of this piece of wood. And I'm going to put very shallow grooves all the way down, and then each time I'm then going to move the fence forward a little bit and do one more from each side. And there we have that effect there, which is fine. I've got a rounding over bit in here, bearing guided. I'm just going to round off the inside of this door so that the feathers don't get caught on it. That's fine. Now I've made up some framing which is 12 millimeters square, and I'm going to build this in a sort of traditional manner. I have to really because of the way the cladding goes. Something like so, with a piece in the middle there. Now I'm just going to put a brad in at the end of each of these. So there I've got two of those, and they'll be the left and the right hand sides. Now the back of the little birdhouse has to be a solid piece of wood, because the only way that it's going to be fixed to a wall is with a screw through this into the wall. And none of this back will show. And the way this back is done is that that's a right angle at the top, and we want the roof material to go straight down, being nailed on here, and then to go past this edge here in a straight line. So that's an important factor there. And up here, the framing is going to be done with little pieces like this, which will effectively mimic the shape. But there'll be one here and one actually against this edge to give it a little bit more support. Now, I'm happy with the way this is going, so I'm now going to glue on these sides, which means I can then start on the front. I'm going to pop a nail in here. Now do be careful when you're using a nail gun, because a nail going in here can come out through the side of the material you're nailing into if you're not careful. I'm now going to attach these pieces, and I'm now going to put this cross piece which goes at the bottom, bit of glue, and I'll pop a brad in there too. Now I'm going to do the apex, which will be going at the front here. I would suggest we can use some masking tape. Help keep those pieces relatively together, like that. And then this piece is in the right place. Let's check that, that's flush there. The glue has only just got to hold things together reasonably, because by the time we've got the roof elements on here, it all starts to become quite a rigid structure. I've just put a cross piece in here, and also I've been operating on the door. The door has a little rebate there and there, so that it's going to fit down onto there like so. Now I know that the door is going to be flush with the bottom here, so I've put it on the back, made sure it's central, and I've marked where the centre is, because we're going to have a hole here which will be used to screw the bird box to a wall or tree or whatever it might be. And you can see now I've got that countersink in there. I've decided to put a little bit of extra support behind here. It gives a little bit of extra support for the roofing material. Right, I've now added some extra bits. There has to be a removable bottom, because bird boxes do get a lot of detritus in there, and every now and again you need to, when there's no birds in there of course, and no eggs and no babies, you have to take the bottom off and clean it out and then put it back again. And that'll make it nice for the next season. In order for the bottom to be removable, I've made some holes here for screws, and I've put a couple of cross pieces here. You can see there, so the screws have got something to screw into. So it all seems pretty elaborate, but this is going to be hopefully something quite different. I've put the front door in place. It's glued on the top and bottom edge, and I may put a nail in there in a minute. Now I've cut out the shiplap. You can see I've painted it. I've painted it with this country colour from Osmo. This is 2507 Dove Blue. And it's come down to quite a nice, almost a satin sheen. That's only one coat, and I do intend putting a second coat on. And the top piece here has to fit over the door, like so. And I've cut it large so that I can trim it later. Then there's another piece, again cut large, to be trimmed later, and there will be another little piece going in at the top, which I'll cut in a minute. This piece here above the door, this piece above the door dictates where the side pieces go. I have cut these to length, but in order to position them, this piece needs to be in place. So I'm now going to apply glue to all the relevant surfaces, and I will be using some nails. Now, in order to do the red, I've had a sample of Osmo Country Solid Colour 2311, which is called Signal Red. And before I put these pieces on here, I put some on the end grain. So here goes my reference piece. And these red edges are going on the inside next to the door. That's that done. Obviously it's got to be trimmed here and along there, and at that end there, and at the bottom of course, but I'll leave that to dry now. Well, it's a bit more progress. I've trimmed off the edges here. The front really is essentially finished. Those nail holes, I've filled them and then rubbed them off gently, and I've now just put another coat of that blue Osmo on there. Now, the edges of these pieces of the shiplap, which end up here and here, would show, and so I've put this decorative stop over those, and that's been glued on, and I've put some nails in there as well. And now I can butt up to this, the shiplap that's coming on each of the sides. The top piece of the shiplap that's up here will need to have a 45-degree edge to it so that it conforms to the roof line. That means I can bring the roof down past that edge. So we're nearly there. I've got the sides on now. I've trimmed them off for length here and also trimmed them at the bottom. I've got to retouch the red here after filling it, and I've put on a little peg for the birds to stand on as they're going in and out. That's about 30mm sticking out from the front here, and that's about a 10mm diameter piece of dowel. So all that's needed now is to touch up these red pieces and to put the roof on. Now, I want the roof to look fairly traditional, and so I've got it overlapping like this. Now, these aren't the same profile pieces that I used on the sides. The profile of these just has the one rebate. Now, in order to make it a little neater, I've done a test fitting, as you see now, and I've mitered the top pieces so that they come together neatly, like so. Now, in order to produce this sort of roof-looking colour, I started by first staining the softwood, and for that I used some Liberon wood dye, and the shade I chose was mahogany because that's what I happen to have, and this one is a water-based wood dye. After that, I had a sample tin of some Osmo, and this is Osmo 425, and then I used 2 coats of this oil, and that produced that rather nice effect. Now, I've had the Dove Blue in the solid colour and also the gold transparent for a while, and when I started using the Dove Blue and I realised just how good a finish it was creating, I contacted Osmo and asked them to send me some samples of some of the other colours in the range, and they sent me, I think it was 6 samples, and I've put them onto a test board here. Now, unfortunately, when I had done it, I put a little bit too much of this particular colour, which is called Pebble Grey, in one place, and I had it hanging up this way to dry, and it ran and I didn't notice. But anyway, never mind. This is just one coat of each of these colours. This is Fir Green, Anthracite Grey, the Pebble Grey, which ran, Royal Blue, Sunflower Yellow, and Signal Red, and it was the Signal Red I used here. And that's just one coat. On the other side here, I did an experiment with the Dove Blue. The top here is just one coat, and then here it's 2 coats, and there is a difference. And obviously 2 coats is far better than one, but it's a very nice finish. And I'm going to be hanging this up outside, and after about a year, I'll try and make sure I report back to you, and that will be out in all weathers. This piece of wood, by the way, is a piece of cedar. So that's it, that's the Beach Hut bird box. Now please remember, I'm not offering any plans for this, you're on your own with this one. And I'd like to just say thank you to Osmo UK for sending those samples of those solid colours to me. Thank you very much for watching, take care, bye bye.